Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our next in our series of See What You Can Be, the Careers in Product Management panel today. So our panel, now that it's a little afternoon and my technical difficulties are behind me, we'll get into this. So with our careers in product management, we have a couple of alums here to help you just get some insights into what is it like to be in the world of product management? What is it like to be a product manager? And so we have a couple of alums that we would like to just introduce you to and have you get a chance to hear a little bit about what they are doing. We've got myself, I'm one of the coaches, Will O'Brien in the GBCC, and I'll be walking us through the panel questions today. And then hopefully about 40 minutes into this, we'll have breakout rooms at the end. So if you're able to stay on that long and be able to network individually with the alums. But as we go around, I also want to hear a little bit about where all of the alums are at, what they are doing currently, and answering this warm-up question. So our warm-up question today is, if you were given a 12-week sabbatical, where would you go and what would you do? And before I turn it over to our panelists to introduce themselves and answer this question, I also want to encourage all of our participants today, all of our students and joining us, to add into the chat, what would you do if you were given a 12-week sabbatical? Where would you go, or what would you do? So, all right, I see in my screen here, Christine is first. So Christine, I will turn it over to you to introduce yourself and answer our warm-up question.
Okay, well, hello everyone. My name is Christine Gergen. I was a 2019 graduate of the part-time MBA program, and I'm currently a global product manager at Abbott within the core diagnostics division. So if I was given a 12-week sabbatical, I would probably go back to Southeast Asia and spend just a long time exploring a couple of countries. I have always wanted to buy or rent a motorcycle and ride it to Vietnam. So I think that would be my #1 priority.
Oh, that sounds amazing. It makes me think of the old movie Motorcycle Diaries, not the same location, but taking a motorcycle trip around. Great. All right. Well, next up in my screen, I see Rabit. So Rabit, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rabit Hassan. I am a senior product manager at Sleep Number. I work on the digital engagement services team that owns customer service strategy. So I'm right now currently working on standing up a product information management system that is going to be an integral part of our tech stack as we move towards 100% self-service for post-transaction service support. I am going to Europe this summer, so I guess that's my answer to where I would go for a 12-week sabbatical. I love backpacking, and I used to backpack a lot, but I haven't exactly traveled much after 2020. So, and I got married in 2021, so this is going to be my honeymoon, but we have designed it as sort of a pseudo backpacking trip. So that's my answer.
Great, thanks, Rabit. Okay, Vineet, you're next up on my screen. I'll hand it over to you.
All right. Hey, everyone. Vineet Agarwal. I am a graduate of part-time MBA program from 2019 as well. Right now as a VP of product at US Bank, basically leading the personalization for all of US Bank. And we stood up in last 3.5 years, a brand new platform called as Goals. So that allows for customers to come in and talk about what kind of financial goals they have, and then we serve them with insights and helpful content from there on. 12-week sabbatical. I think I'm going to split it in multiple steps. First week, I should take like a big long sleep. I wish I can get that. I would want to take at least a week to read books. I haven't read much beyond the course material since 2019. So that's something on my list as well. And then travel down to Italy. That's a country I haven't explored much. So definitely high on my list.
Great, thanks, Vineet. All right, Alex, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and answer this question.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Baltus. I was a product manager at Polaris, actually just left my job to transition between MBAs on Monday. But I finished my credits for part-time MBA school 2 weeks ago and will be graduating in middle of May. So really exciting there. But yeah, I'm a product manager at Polaris, or was on their sport side-by-side off-road vehicle product line for 4 years. And I actually am on a 16-week sabbatical. And in 2 weeks, I will be going and taking a 15-day trek to Everest Base Camp in Nepal. So that's what I'm doing with my time off.
Great. So again, I see Julia put into the chat. I would love to keep hearing from our students today where they'd want to go. I think now that I see what's in the chat so far, Dre, I would probably want to go with you back to Italy and see some of the different football stadiums. Maybe do a little bit of trekking around Europe that way. So, well, thanks everyone for giving a quick intro. So the next question I want to pose to everyone, I'm going to actually take down the screen here, and if we can just have, feature our panelists here. What I want to do now is I would love to hear a little bit more about what it's like to be in product. What do you do? What's a daily project look like? So if you could just share a little bit about the scope of the work that you're doing. I know some of you already introduced a little bit, some of the skills that you use and some of the challenges that you've encountered. So I'll go back to you, Christine, to kick us off. Walk us through what your day is like and some of the work that you do.
Okay, well, so in my role, or my current role at Avid, Global Product Manager, I have responsibility for our clinical chemistry and immunoassay analyzers, which are really the kind of the key rock of our total laboratory solution that we offer to customers around the globe. So as part of that, most of my role is focused on upstream product enhancement and development type activities, whether that's helping teams create new tests that could be on the analyzer, or enhancements kind of through software, and then even true hardware enhancements in the future when we're thinking about the next generation of equipment. I do have some downstream responsibility sprinkled in because I'm considered sort of the owner of the overall brand itself. So I also help support teams in that capacity to create content that's impactful and targeted at each area around the world. So on a day-to-day basis, it's kind of a balance of helping march some of those long-term big scope projects forward through partnering with other cross-functional team members and partners around the world in our different areas. And then also responding to the day-to-day things that come up, which is, as I'm sure the other product managers will say, like there's never a dull moment. You'll get an email if there's suddenly an issue in Japan. How can we help support correcting that or addressing it? Because although as a product manager, it might not be your job to fix a problem, it is your job to help manage the messaging and the perception of that issue. So I do a lot of that as well. And I'm sure I'm missing a ton, but it's a very variable set of responsibilities. So.
Perfect. Thanks for getting us started there, Christine. So Ravi, I'll hand it over to you. I'd love to hear more about what your life is like at Sleep Number and what some of the things you're working on, and the challenges you face.
Yeah, I would concur. I would add on to a lot of things what Christine said, but my role is kind of a different role at Sleep Number. So far, I've been heavily involved in strategy. As we are evolving towards being 100% self-service, there's a lot of technology evolution that we need to go through, and I'm part of that. What I'm doing right now is socializing a system that a lot of our digital selling systems is going to use. So online, in the store. So that requires a ton of strategy work, but my role is going to quickly pivot into doing a ton of tactical work, meaning like, taking care of daily sprint planning, grooming, that sort of stuff. So I guess the role differs from on a monthly basis. Is that what I would try to say? I won't think, up till now, it's been a year here. No day has been the same. So
That's amazing. No day has been the same. So for those of you who, when you hear a job description, variety or not doing the same routine, which as a career counselor, I'm kind of into those creature habit routines, but love to hear that for those of you looking in that direction. All right, well, Vineet, I know that you probably knew you're next up in our order here. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about what your life is like.
So I think this list is going on really, Christine, Rabi, you've added on a whole lot. In my role as a leader of product management space, I end up managing a lot of stakeholder relationship, which means like the P&L owners, the technical, the design owners. So I work a whole lot in making sure that the teams are making progress in the right direction. What it also means is that I own the strategy and the vision for where the entire product platform is going to move into next. So the way that I approach it is that I want to work bottoms up. So all the information that the teams is learning on the ground, right, from their experiences as they're rolling out, what's working, what's not working, bring all of it, and then align that with the senior leaders, but also like understanding what for example, recent headwinds with mortgage as it's happening, that means that we have to change our experience for the customers. We have to pivot a whole lot. So yes, no day is the same. I think my job description really like had this define the strategy and a 3-year vision and be done with it. I think I'm always working on that. It's never the same thing. One of the other things that I would say, like the big skill, one of the few things that I really use in skills is driving deep with the empathy for my team, because I was a product manager at one point, so I understand like what it means to be there. And what I also try to bring in is we try to use a whole lot of dog fooding. So I'm a US Bank customer myself, which means that I try to test these products myself. Like my family, they use it. They are a US Bank customer as well by force. But it allows for us to understand like how it's working in the environment.
Perfect. Thanks, Vineet. Alex, I'll turn it over to you.
Awesome. I'd say probably the major part of my job is interfacing with our customers and just living and breathing their daily life and use of our products with them to help understand areas of opportunity where our competition is doing better than us, things that are white space that we can go after and create new categories or new revenue opportunities. So travel a lot to events or meet up with customers to allow us to get that in-customer experience. Of course, over the last 2 years, it's been a lot different with a lack of ability to travel, but we've still found clever ways to engage with our customers. So once we visit our customers and come up with ideas, it's my job as a product manager to formulate those into business lines or portfolios that are profitable. So all the business cases associated with developing those products, whether that be from a revenue side or from a development side. I work extremely close with our engineering team. I'm actually an engineer myself in the past at Polaris. So it helps a lot having that background to translate the customer needs into what we call KPCs, or key product characteristics that define the product. And my job is to sit hand in hand with engineering as those products go through development to ensure that they're tracking to our customer needs within budget and scope, as well as delivering a product that's superior to our competition. And then several of you have mentioned it already, owning the strategy for our long range product plan. We look out 3 to 5 years. So developing a roadmap that's going to ensure that our customer needs are met, that we're beating the competition, and then meeting our profitability goals.
Great insights. Thanks everyone for getting us started. Such a strong foot there. And I will say too, for students in the crowd today, feel free to ask questions in the chat if anything really stands out to you. Perfect. I see Dre throwing one on already. But also, if there's some very specific questions for certain panelists, you'll have time at the end as well to ask those. I'm just because we're at a bit of a pause here, I'm going to go right over to Dre's question here. So how important is it to have a background in your employer's industry, medical, retail, finance, et cetera? And is that familiarity usually seen as a requirement to aspire to a job as a product manager? I'll
So
open
I
this
can
up.
maybe kick it off.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
for it.
So when I'm hiring people in product specific functions, I'm not looking for specifically experience in an industry, but it's more about like how do they generally approach product management as a principle. Because the variety of experiences that people bring in my group that allows me to think differently. And I think generally that's an expectation from most product roles, unless you are going for a deep, like if you're going for maybe like a product manager for Tesla, it's important for you to understand how cars work, right? But depends upon like what specific portion of Tesla you are working at. If you are working here at US Bank, general understanding of how banks work from your own interactions with the banks is good enough to get you started. But building that vision and the strategy and roadmap, I think that's the one skill that we generally look for.
I would concur with Nate. So like I said, I mean, I haven't had a day that's been similar at Sleep Number. Every time is different. So about maybe 6 or 7 months ago, I was working on developing a new UI. Now I'm working on setting, smoothing out app architecture. So the breadth of the work that you do in product management changes. So it's very important to have a set of skills that transcend industries, not just retail, not just finance, not just medtech. So you need to have a set of skills that transcend those industries, and that's essentially what companies are looking for, not specifically in experience in industry. Having said that, there are some roles and there are some product management positions that probably might require industry experience. So I can tell there are product managers at Sleep Number, they're doing well because they had a retail background, or they had a background in mobile app development. So those things help, but I would say that accounts for 30% of your overall profile, not a lot.
Good insights. So I see Tanay has also added a question, and this kind of flows into some of the questions we had later down, but I'll just elevate it now because it relates to some of that, how to get into this. So this question here is, what specifics, if any, make an applicant stand out for a product manager role in general? Anything specific in a resume that would help? Feel free to answer into either of those. But Christine or Alex, want to kick us off with an answer there?
Yeah, so I guess I'm not sure I quite have like one specific thing, but I think what they're looking for is evidence that you can think critically, come up with a plan, and then execute it. So any kind of, those bullet points in your resume that demonstrate that you used your critical thinking skills, data analysis, your partnership with other stakeholders to take in information, make a decision with that information, and then actually execute it, which is, I don't know about everyone else, but a challenge that we face at Abbott all the time. Sometimes we have great ideas, it's difficult to execute. So those three things together, kind of boom, boom, boom. If you can show you're capable of that, it goes into what Vineet was saying. It's not about the specific industry, it's about that skill set. Can you think? So.
And just adding one other note on that is just interpersonal networking and influence skills. Oftentimes I'm competing with other business ideas, and it's up to me to influence others that this product or idea is the best option for profitability and for our customers. So just having that ability to formulate your ideas in a clear way that management can see and hear, and as well working alongside other teams well in that aspect. It's probably the most cross-collaborative job at my company, and I'm sure other companies, because you're working alongside marketing, sales, and ours R&D, the customer. So you need to be able to talk and wear all these different hats and bring that data together and spill it out into a formalized plan. So.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, everyone's been talking about the same theme. Stakeholder management is something product managers look for in resumes. competition for resources, competing metrics is by design in an organization, right? So you have to find out ways to execute a plan while balancing the needs of multiple stakeholders that might have competing interests. So, right. So that is something I definitely look for in a resume. Have they done something like this before? Is this a candidate that can come up with an amazing idea, but would not be able to socialize it enough, or would not be able to get enough traction within other teams to be able to execute it?
Yeah, I think if you use Carlson GBCC's template, that allows for a whole lot of like coverage, because it talks about like impact. Impact is something, if you were to ask like one responsibility for a PM is to like bring impact at an organization, at a team, at every level. So if you can highlight your impact, like no matter what it is, it doesn't have to be like a multi-million-dollar, but if it is, sure, why not? But impact is something really critical in your resume.
Great, great. So
I can take on Jyoti's next question, which is really quick one. I think it doesn't really matter whether it doesn't have to be a tangible product. Like a whole lot of like services work itself translates into like the customer facing products later on. So like if you think about all the automation that's happening around the world, that's happening like taking really what were the manual tasks and making more digital. So
great. Well, thanks for taking that one. So going back to kind of that resume part and what you're looking for, this question kind of relates in that we're looking at skills. When you think about skills for this type of role, I want students and people that are envisioning going into this field have a good sense of like, how could I get into this, and what kind of skills do I need? What kind of skills should I be developing throughout my coursework through the MBA? So I'd love to open it up to the panelists. And again, we're kind of in this section where not everyone needs to chime in, but be curious to hear, what skills do you find are critical and what skills could be developed throughout their MBA program?
I can't harp enough about analytical skills, analysis, looking at data, trying to digest data, trying to pull themes out of data. And also, I also would like to add, not depending too much on data. So there is a soft, what I'm trying to say, there's a sweet spot that you need to rely on, and that's something. Be able to locate how much data is important, what type of data is important, is a skill I'd say. I don't know. I picked it up in different courses, but that's something. If you want to select a course, go after that. If you want to select an experience, go after that.
I can.
Yeah, go ahead, Christine. Go ahead.
For me specifically, I tried to demonstrate some amount of kind of financial acumen and the ability to build a business case. That was something that probably wasn't evident from my experience in my job before this, but I was able to pick up those skills through the fellowships and classes at Carlson. And I definitely tried to draw attention to those because they're also a big part of what I do. And it kind of allows you to hit the ground running in a way that you might not be able to if you had to develop it on the job.
Yeah, I think both of you hit on a lot of my points, right? One that I'll add is being able to understand like, so value proposition, right? So that value proposition design is really important. In particular, two classes that really helped me is strategic management, which was like one of the first classes that I took because it gave me all the frameworks early on. The other I took was a pricing class, because if there is anything that is relevant to anytime we shop around is the price, right? Right now, you look at inflation, people are taking time to even think about like at the gas station, do they really want to have the tank full or not? So thinking about from the value statement, like the value proposition for the customers, it's really important to think about that.
Great. So the next thing I wanted to think about is, as people are jumping into this field or want to pursue this field, I'd love to hear a little bit about your own personal story. How did you transition into or break into the field of product management?
I'll take that one first. I started at Polaris as a mechanical engineer and developed a really good understanding for the technical development behind our products. And like we mentioned before, that's not a requirement to be a good product manager, specifically at Polaris, but it does help me with my rapport working alongside engineering and gaining their trust and respect and understanding what I'm asking of them in a reasonable amount of time. So it allows me to be more successful in my upfront ask. So throughout my time as a engineer, I definitely worked alongside my development team to get stretch assignments that allowed me to get exposure to the business side of the company and get more experience building those business cases and getting the customer insights to allow me to build that foundation of skills and eventually applied for a position and was able to use those skills that I had gained through such assignments, building those business cases and those product plans to then apply my engineering knowledge and really be a strong candidate for a product manager. And it's helped me immensely in my role as a product manager, having that baseline as an engineer, but also being able to translate my business core skills into a formality throughout my specific role carrying out these product plans. So it doesn't necessarily require MBA school, but MBA school definitely does help when you're going through these classes, like we mentioned before, those finance classes, those pricing classes, even some corporate strategy classes. All those are going to help bolster you in order to be better applicants for a product manager role.
Great. Christine, how about you? How did you break into the field?
Yeah, so I spent the first almost 10 years of my career working in the clinical laboratory. So I was a technologist and then a manager for several years. And it was while I was working as a manager that I decided to go get my MBA. And as things do, they just kind of turned. That wasn't my goal, but I sort of fell in love with marketing and specifically upstream marketing. If you have not taken the Millie Val Lab and you're interested in being a product manager in the healthcare space, take it. I loved it. I took it twice, but that helped. That kind of was a window into like what my career could be. So once I knew that that was a shift I wanted to make, I knew that I needed to find a way to use some of the skills I was learning in that class so that you could demonstrate that capability when I was looking for a job, because it was a pretty big shift from working in a lab to marketing. So I became one of the Millie Fellows, which allowed me to get some real life experience working with the Children's Hospital of Minnesota, evaluating new products for investment and development. And then I also was a Minnesota Innovation Corps Fellow. So I was partnered with a startup there as well to evaluate their products. So it was a lot of really upstream focused experience, but I think that helped me, not just get the skills, but put them into action, so that when I was interviewing, I had real life experiences to talk about, not just hypotheticals. So I think that was really helpful. And then I was able to land this gig at Abbott, and it was kind of an obvious crossover between my history in diagnostics and the product management career that I wanted. So
Great, thanks. How about Vineet? How about you? How did you get into the field?
So I transitioned from consulting. So I did tech consulting early on in my career. But then I started making a pivot internally from a project building strategies customers, and then eventually I took on a role specifically on my journey from there on led into taking a role at US Bank, where I owned that product platform right to one. So there's no to management, it's because you choose your path.
Looks like we're losing your audio just a little bit there, Vineet. I'll hand it over to you, Rabit, if you could share with us how you broke into the field.
Yeah, sure. I want to answer it in a little bit more nuanced manner. I was an international student, so I was not only breaking into product management, I was also breaking into a different market. So what helped me was being able to phrase my previous experience in a way that a product manager would understand. That's something that helped me. And number two would be taking on a lot of gigs, small gigs. As soon as I graduated, I started working for this startup called NeighborShare. They were developing a platform for small donors to connect with large nonprofits, right? So I got a ton of experience there. It was more of an internship, but what I was able to get out of it was a lot of experience, a lot of skill sets that helped me in the interview process. It helped me set up my resume. It helped me highlight those skills that product managers are looking for. And eventually, a year later, I was able to break into product management. So I've been here as a senior product manager for a year now.
Great, great. Well, I wanted to, we're doing great on time, so I wanted to transition into talking about challenges that you've seen. So I'd love to hear about what are some of the challenges that you've been facing in the work that you're doing. Who would like to take that one first?
Let's see if my audio thing I can pick it off. So one of the big challenges that is always there, and the is it changing, the leadership who company.
Yeah, it seems like you're still cutting in and out a little bit there. I'll hand it over to you, Alex, as Vineet works on his audio, if you want to chime in.
Yeah, definitely. The biggest challenge, of course, topic of the last couple of years is dealing with supply chain issues and how we get creative about our product portfolio offering in order to ensure that our customers have the product in their hands and aren't frustrated by the lack of availability. So it's getting creative with packaging things together or marketing. You can't overmarket because you don't want to drive customer demand to your product if there's no product available. So getting strategic about the things that we're going to market are going to be things that we know we're going to have in stock or have in stock, but it's just overall, there's been huge pressure on profitability in the last few years. So with that pricing strategy class was really able to leverage a lot of those learnings to drive that value to our customers. There's a lot of people that are willing to pay for things out there. And if your costs are going up, a lot of people are passing them on to customers, but making sure that that value is there. So not overcharging them for that, but just putting that strategic hat on and making sure that your product availability meets the customer needs, as well as making sure that their voices are heard when there are issues that come up. So it's a very diverse role that we have as a product manager. Something that we didn't expect coming into COVID was having that type of hat that you had to wear. So.
I can go next. So some of the challenges we've had are actually very similar to what Alex mentioned. Supply chain probably across the board has been a bit of an issue since COVID. But some of the other things that come up often when we're talking upstream product development, or even when we're partway through the development process, is the trade-off between the priorities of different stakeholders and limited resources. So it does lead to some of those sometimes difficult and challenging conversations with the whole team and up to leadership sometimes with, you know, how much more time are we willing to put into this project if we can get to the perfect product versus how much, you know, what's the trade-off? If we let this one product specification go and we can launch the product 6 months earlier, is that worth the trade-off? How does that put, you know, how does that place us compared to the competition? How does that place us compared to where the market is going in the future? So that's one of the, yeah, it's fun and it's exciting, but as a product manager, I see it my role to keep the focus on the customer. You know, my job is to speak for them and say, this is what we need to have a minimum viable product that is actually worth putting out there in the first place. And sometimes that's challenging because other stakeholders have different priorities. I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Definitely, definitely. Thanks, Christine, for that. And you mentioned COVID-19, and I thought maybe I'd open it up to the group as well. And this kind of line of questioning is, have there been any challenges, or what challenges have you faced over the last couple of years? And, you know, do you see some of the changes that have taken place during COVID lasting in the role of a product manager?
Yeah, I could take that one. So Sleep Number is a vertically integrated company, and it's been that way for the past 20 years. So we've been selling beds, we've been selling furniture, not a lot changed until the pandemic struck, right? So we have a we had a brick and mortar distribution channel, and we weren't that active online. So what happened was all these stores shut down. So we had to move towards a digital solution fast. And what that did is, because there were a lot of decisions that were very expedient, we had to take them as we went along. That added a ton of tech debt. So the challenge I see going forward is, as we continue to evolve to become more mobile, to become more, bring on different channels, different distribution channels, be more heavily lean into e-commerce. We gotta add features in a way that they reduce the tech debt that we have, rather than add to it. Because the product manager had come up with great ideas on how to improve customer experience, but they need to have a more of an enterprise view. Are the features that they're bringing along actually supporting other processes within the company, or they're just adding more and more debt for others to just solve in the future? So instead of punting that challenge, you have to deal with it right now.
I think one challenge, let's see if my audio is working better now. Perfect. Okay. I think I need to get my refund back for the AirPods. All right. So I think the big challenge that I think that COVID-19 threw us was the cross collaboration. So PM, product management, is a very collaborative career path. And it's hard to find people that you can just go up to their desk and have that conversation. So finding that moment, finding that time, you are literally bound by the calendars, and it's a big issue to manage your work if you don't know, if you don't get time from people. So I think that changed the priorities. COVID-19 from a US bank perspective, brought in a lot of opportunities. We had a lot of financial opportunities for the customers, but then it also brought in a lot of challenges. People who we knew, like the 40% of US population who lived from paycheck to paycheck, did not have a way to go forward. So how do we, challenge for us was what are the pivoting strategies we need to make at this point to figure out what's next, and how can we help best these customers? So being quick enough to add product to the market, being a bank, we had to deal with a lot of compliance and regulations that were being thrown around at the time. And then we have to stay aware of how do you find these stakeholders and manage getting face time with them. So COVID-19 wasn't that nice to us initially, but then we quickly added products like Miro, Mural to do all those collaboration digitally. That led into for us to manage the last 2.5 years.
Yeah, Miro is a great tool for that type of collaboration. Well, we're getting close to our time to go into the breakouts, but before we move into the breakouts, one thing I wanted to just hear from y'all is when we're thinking about the job search, because you're gonna have a chance to be networking here in just a minute, any tips, any advice on getting into the roles, networking into the roles? Just would love to hear any advice that you have for students who want to get into this role, how to get into these roles.
I would say, networking is definitely important. I did have a couple of contacts at Abbott, and I'm sure that helped a little bit in getting through that first step of the process where you hand in the resume and you're just a stack in a pile of resumes. So I would encourage you to reach out and make those connections and leverage the resources at Carlson to do that. I think part of the networking should be about understanding what a product manager role looks like at that company, because as you can tell, the same title has very different job functions sometimes. Having said all of that, if you see a job when you're just going through the job boards and it really speaks to you and you really get excited about it, apply for it even if you don't have that network in place. I also interviewed with companies that I had absolutely no one in the connection. So I think the networking helps, it really does, but don't let that stop you from going after something that you want. So.
Great. Any other tips about getting into the roles before we jump into our breakout session?
I just say find out what kind of a person and what kind of products you like from your experiences. So not every product is a good fit for you, right? So like a technology or engineering product may not be a good fit for you. Like it is not a good fit for me. I really wanted a product that has some sort of a customer or some sort of a user experience. So I wouldn't work on the APIs. I made a conscious decision never to work on the APIs. So find what excites you, and you'll find like every single type of product management role exists out there today.
Alex, was there anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, just really understanding the role requirements and bringing out the strengths in your resume that correlate best to that job and the things that you think that they're going to be looking for. And that can be done through research of people that are in that current role, through LinkedIn, conversations, looking at the job specifically, but really bring out, at my company specifically, really a metric-based success measurement type of system. So anything in your resume that can have tangible, definable goals or metrics that you've achieved really helps bring your success forward for people that are looking for hiring into that role.
I would like to say research, like a ton of research into the role and in the company in general, because I've noticed myself and my peers, everybody who have eventually landed offers, got them through being at the right spot at the right time. They were going through a certain issue, and I or other peers of mine were able to talk to that issue. And that's how you stand out from the rest of the applicants in that stack of resumes.
Great advice as we go into our time of networking. So Julie, can you get our panelists set up into the breakout rooms, and then students, as you go, have a chance to select into the breakout rooms that you're wanting to join first?
Great. They're ready to go. We're going to open them for about 15 minutes. And then you'll be able to move around between rooms. But panelists, you'll go directly into your room once I start it, which I will do right now. All right, it looks like all of our panelists.
Beat and Dre, is he how that conversation went? Hey Dre, hey Ravi.
Everybody should be back in the room now. Welcome back.
Time went by really fast.
Yeah, 15 minutes can really fly. I'll hand it over to you, Will.
Yeah, so we are wrapping up. It's almost 1, and I know people probably have to jump. So I just wanted to wrap up by saying thank you so much to all the panelists. If we could just give them a nice round of applause, emojis, everything before we wrap up. But thanks again to our panelists for coming out today. And with that, we can go about our day. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you. Nice
Thank
seeing you,
you.
alum.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.